Yo, what is up everyone? Back here with another video. Today we're going to be doing a video on Salamence. This is a Pokemon I actually really like. I think it's super underrated in format. I've actually seen it pop up quite a bit too. It's a very good Pokemon, and I'm gonna kind of be explaining why, kind of going through it with you guys, and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the content. As always, guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, drop a comment below, answer a question a day, and make sure to check out Patreon if you guys would like to support the content beyond these videos. And so pretty much with Salamence, it's a really interesting Pokemon because I feel like its Intimidate ability really gives it certain uses that can really benefit it overall, right? Compared to like some other dragon types. The main other two dragon types that are being used at the moment, if we go over to Battle Festival doubles, are obviously Garchomp, and then you have Latios, and then it's pretty much Salamence, right? These are like your three main. I guess Kingdra, but like, Kingdra kind of sucks. But yeah, pretty much with Salamence, you're able to immediately pressure the dragon type coverage moves off of a pretty strong special attack and physical attack. Its physical attack being a little bit better, and the intimidate ability obviously letting you pivot. And the dragon flying typing obviously sucks for being quad weak to ice, but like Chomp is too. And Latios doesn't like taking ice moves. It doesn't like taking dragon moves. Neither does Mence or neither does Garchomp. And fairy moves, right? They're all kind of weak to the same thing. It just happens to be the Mence is quad weak like Garchomp, but also Latios obviously, isn't. But the main benefit is that you pretty much have the Intimidate to kind of cushion some other attacks. Anyways, so Men's has a really wide move pool coverage, so I'm going to be going through a couple different sets, but also I want to talk about what teams it's been used on, how it's been used. Let me actually open up Twitter here. We're going to go to Victory Road. Um I find myself referencing Victory Road a lot because this is the main like big tournament we've had, but also too I'm going to be referencing two other tournaments where like I've played versus Men's, but Victory Road is the nicer one to look at usually. So if we look over here, not too many Salamence, right? Literally just Wolf. But I do think Salamence is actually a really good option. And Wolf actually is a set that I have seen going around quite a bit that like is actually pretty useful. And anyways, going on to discussing Mence a little bit more, you can pretty much run it in multiple ways. One of the sets being Choice Scarf, right? You're able to go for a quick Draco Meteor with Choice Scarf, able to snipe stuff like Latios, Garchomp, even just doing a bunch of damage, and you can constantly pivot, intimidate in and out, right? Then the other Salamence set that I personally use that I really liked a lot was Life Orb Salamence, Life Orb Physical specifically, because you're able to do a lot of damage with Dragon Claw and Earthquake to hit the electric types, and you're also able to use Fire Fang, which you can use to snipe Scizor, right? So pretty much two different ways to use Mence. The special Mence usually being a little bit more defensive in nature, or at least having a couple of more coverage options. And they both have good coverage options, but pretty much the one is meant to do damage and one is meant to pivot in and out and potentially snipe a couple of frailer mons, right? Now, the one interesting thing about Mence's special move pool is it does get a pretty decent move pool, right? Like Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse, Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Hydro Pump. Like these are all pretty decent. Now, the one thing that sucks is beyond these moves, you don't get too much, but because Mence has so much physical attack, even on these Scarf sets, you can run like Timid, right? You still have a decent enough attack stat. We're gonna remove the IV drop. You can even run like moves like Earthquake. You can run moves like Rock Slide. A couple of other physical moves, right? But pretty much these special sets are really nice at just being able to do damage. And honestly, like Dragon, Fire, and Water coverage as your special kit actually really isn't that bad. Considering too, you also have the option of a physical move if you really want. Now, for its physical move set, it actually has quite a bit more options in my opinion. The main options, though, that are of note are like Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Fire Fang. That being said, it does get some other moves. Rock Slide, Stone Edge being one, which is really nice. Brick Break, and you can even run a Dragon Dance set on it, which is really nice. In terms of useless moves, Rock Tomb is one that I saw that I thought was kind of cool, but obviously it's kind of up in the air. And Aerial Ace as like a stab physical move, right? But primarily, I think the best options are Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and Fire Fang, right? Now you might be like, okay, well, that sounds kind of cool, but like, how do I know that's actually going to be like doing work, right? Well, let's take a look at the metagame, right? Obviously, it doesn't like dealing with Cresselia Togekiss. It actually 1v1s Chomp if you're running the Life Orb set or if you're running Draco Meteor on the special set, right? Because you get the Intimidate down, Chomp isn't able to do too much damage, and you're also able to nuke it immediately. Arcanine doesn't like dealing with the physical Mens set. It also doesn't like dealing with the special Mens set because you're faster, and you can also go for Hydro Pump, right? Scizor, you have either Flamethrower or Fire Fang for, depending on the set you're running, so you're actually able to deal with those. So that's 3 Pokemon already that you can deal with out of the top Mons, right? Rotom, you hit neutrally. It's kind of like you're doing a good chunk of damage, but you're probably not going to beat it unless you have a bit of help or it's chipped a little bit, but it's still useful. And Tyranitar is good because even though obviously Tyranitar is rock, so it's super effective, as long as Tyranitar doesn't have a dragon and it's up, you got Salamence in pretty freely. You can go for Earthquake twice and remove it, right? And that's pretty solid, as long as you can get Rock Slide Flinch. Walls Breloom can't do anything into it. Heatran doesn't really like dealing with Earthquake Ments. The only thing it really has to hit you is Flash Cannon. If it's not running the dumb Substitute set, I think Substitute's really bad, but whatever, that's besides the point. Then, we get into Ludicolo. Obviously, Ludicolo is an option to hit you, but if you have Aerial Ace, potentially you can snipe it. Same with Hariyama. Politoed's like the only mon, I think, out of like this group besides like Togekiss and Cresselia that can really actually like just hit it with Ice Beam, kill it. Gastro as well. Obviously, Gastro sits in front of men, so you can't really break it too much. Then you get into Latios. If you're the Scarf set, you can snipe it. If you have Redirection and Life Orb set, you can pretty much just destroy it with Life Orb Dragon Claw. Hit him on top of you wall, so you're always able to beat it. Azumarill is one of those kind of water types that can beat you, but you usually have partners that can help you deal with it. I'm going to be talking about partners that typically help Salamence in a second. And then obviously as we get down, now we're kind of going into like more random ons that you see less often. But besides the point, if we're talking about Ments, right, you'll see that it actually has a lot of good utility into a lot of the format. Now, couple of things of note with, I think, Salamence as well. So Salamence typically works best when you have a good supportive core around it. So I would say the best core that I've seen with Ments so far that I've actually used myself is pretty much a Dragon Fairy Steel core. And I've talked about this in my 2 previous videos because the previous video that I did actually was a team featuring Salamence. So you guys can check that out. It actually is Tangrowth, Salamence, Azumarill stuff, so it's really cool. But regardless, this core is really strong because you get the Dragon Fairy Steel core. And pretty much if you look, there's no redundant no redundancies in the weakness here, right? So Azumarill's weak to poison, Heatran's immune. Azumarill weak to grass, Heatran's resistant, so is Salamence. Azumarill's weak to electric moves. Everything, like the other 2 take it neutrally, so that's like the only one that can actually hit this pretty decently. Heatran weak to water and ground moves. Salamence resists and is immune. And Azumarill resists the water move, and like so on, right? So you'll see like this core actually has pretty good synergy with itself. And then even if you add something like a redirector, like Tangrowth, now you're pretty much covered versus a lot of cores because you have that redirection option. You have a core that can pretty much hit majority of mons and a pretty decent physical special split, right? So you're not kind of committed to one or the other to where like Snarl spam or like Intimidate spam is going to wall you, right? So that's something to keep in mind a lot with Ments, right? Your Ments set actually very, very much changes depending on your team, and that's like the nicest thing about it because it can be flexible. So for example, right, you're looking at something like Garchomp or Latios, they can't really run a special, or like Garchomp can't run special, right? And Latios can't run physical. Like it just makes no sense. They're just not good that way, right? And because of that, they are very limited in their roles and what they can do, right? Garchomp's always going to be a physical attacker. Almost always going to have Earthquake, Rock Slide, like Dragon Claw. And then Latios always going to have, like, Dragon Move, Psychic, Ice Beam, Protector, like, Calm Mind, whatever. But, like, the problem with that for them, and it's not that it's, like, necessarily bad, right? Like, they're still good mons in their own right. But they don't have the flexibility and options, especially in a closed team sheet scenario, where they have the flexibility to do what they want. So I really think that Salamence is also strong because in a situation where it's not open team sheet and they can see what you're using, like Salamence is actually really crazy in terms of what it can do in terms of intimidating, going for strong physical moves, special moves, depending on your team. And it's just, it's a really nice option. I really like Salamence as a whole. And I think it's a super cool Pokemon. But yeah. That's pretty much the main reasonings as to why it's good, I think. Now, in terms of the things that you have to look out for when you're using Salamence, as we've kind of gone through, Togekiss and Cresselia are 2 major issues for it, right? Those 2 are able to pretty much snipe it immediately. Ice Beam here, going for Gleam here. You need to be cautious of Latios. Latios obviously depends on your set as well, but it can also just snipe you outright if you're not careful. And then you have Ludicolo and like kind of those bulky water types that just have like ice moves, right? So for example, Azumarill, right? And then you have Politoed. Just a couple things that can hit Ments, right? So it's something you need to be a little bit wary of. Now, the partners that work best with Salamence, from my experience, are actually Heatran, Azumarill, right? Because you pretty much have that good coverage between each other. They're good like resistances between each other. Tyranitar is really nice because you also have like the weather change that you can use next to Salamence. So for example, Ludicolo's on the field next to Politoed, swap in Tyranitar, remove Ludicolo's weather, Aerial Ace Ludicolo, Ludicolo's dead. So that's just one of the nice options you get. Also, too, these two Pokemon are particularly weak to ground moves, which means Salamence complements them pretty well. Tyranitar's weaknesses being fighting moves and being the ground moves, and like Salamence swaps into both of those pretty well. Fairy, obviously not a good swap in, so don't swap in Salamence for Fairy weakness, but pretty much that's the main idea there. So this is just to give you guys an idea of Salamence and why I think it's so good in the format. I really think its flexibility is like super good. If you guys are interested in the Patreon, whenever I do these kind of videos, I always upload EV spreads and like different movesets for the Pokemon up in Patreon, along with teams that I use for tournaments and everything. Usually they come out on the YouTube at some point, but you get pretty early access to them if you're on the Patreon. So make sure to check that out down below if you guys are interested. If you guys are interested in improving your skills too, make sure to check out my coaching down below as well. And once again, guys, thank you for all the support. I incredibly appreciate it, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.